You just checked your savings account and something felt different. The balance is $8,347. And for the first time in your entire financial life, you didn't feel poor. You didn't feel behind. You felt like maybe, just maybe, you're actually getting somewhere. You've been grinding for 18 months, saving every month, watching the balance slowly tick up. And now suddenly it doesn't feel pointless anymore. Something shifted. And you can't quite explain what changed. My name is Drew, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychological tipping points in personal finance. If you're someone who's been saving for a while, but you're still waiting for it to feel like it matters, or if you want to know what you're working toward beyond just having more money, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because I'm about to show you exactly when saving stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like power. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to get there faster. Now look, I know what you're thinking. Drew, everyone's different. There's no magic number where saving suddenly feels worth it. And technically, you're right. The exact dollar amount varies by person, by income level, by cost of living. But here's the thing. There absolutely are psychological tipping points where something fundamental shifts in how you experience money. And those tipping points are way more predictable than you'd think. Let me show you exactly how this works, because this is where it gets interesting. The first tipping point happens around $1,000 to $2,000 saved. And this one isn't about the money, it's about the proof of concept. For most people, getting to $1,000 in savings is the first time in their adult life they've ever had that much money that wasn't immediately earmarked for bills or expenses. Here's what most people don't realize. Before you hit $1,000, every financial setback feels like a crisis. Your car needs a $400 repair? Crisis. Your laptop dies and you need $600 for a replacement? Crisis. You're constantly one unexpected expense away from credit card debt or borrowing from family. And that constant vulnerability is exhausting. But once you hit $1,000, something changes. Not everything. You're still vulnerable to bigger emergencies. But small crises stop being crises. A $400 car repair is annoying, not devastating. You can handle it. You've got a buffer. And psychologically, that buffer is huge. There's actual research on this from the Federal Reserve. They found that 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Which means if you've got $1,000 saved, you're already ahead of almost half the country. You've achieved something that nearly half of adults haven't. That's the first moment where saving starts to feel real. Now you might be thinking, okay, Drew, but $1,000 isn't life-changing money. I'm not retiring on that. And you're absolutely right. But here's the thing. The psychological shift isn't about what the money can buy. It's about what it proves. You proved you can save money. You proved you can stick with something financial for months. You proved you're not the kind of person who's permanently broke. That proof matters more than the dollar amount. Because up until that point, there was probably a part of your brain that wondered if you were capable of saving at all. Maybe you tried before and failed. Maybe you've never seen a four-digit number in your bank account that wasn't already spent. Getting to $1,000 answers a question you didn't even realize you were asking. Am I the kind of person who can do this? The answer is yes. And knowing that changes everything about how you approach money going forward. But the real psychological shift happens at the second tipping point, and this is where things get wild. The second tipping point happens somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in savings, depending on your expenses and income. And this is the point where you stop feeling poor. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you've got $1,000 saved, you can handle small emergencies. But you're still fundamentally vulnerable. A medical bill, a car replacement, a job loss, any of those would wipe you out completely. You're better off than you were, but you're still living on the edge. But when you cross $5,000, something massive shifts. You're not on the edge anymore. You've got breathing room, real breathing room. If you lost your job today, you could survive for at least a month, probably two, while you figured things out. If your car died, you could buy a used replacement without going into debt. You've got options. Here's what most people don't realize. The feeling of being poor isn't really about how much you earn. It's about feeling like you don't have choices. It's about feeling like you're one bad break away from disaster. And that feeling doesn't go away just because you're earning decent money. I know people making $80,000 a year who feel desperately poor because they're living paycheck to paycheck with no savings. But once you cross that $5,000 to $10,000 threshold, the constant background anxiety about money starts to fade. Not completely. You've still got financial stress. But it's different. You're not in survival mode anymore. You're in building mode. There's a study from Princeton researchers that found emotional well-being increases with income up to about $75,000 annually, then plateaus. But here's what's interesting. The well-being increase isn't really about the income itself. It's about the financial security that income enables. And you can get that same security feeling at a lower income if you've built substantial savings. Let me give you a real example. My friend Alex was making $55,000 a year and feeling broke constantly, always stressed about money, always worried about unexpected expenses. She started saving aggressively, about $800 a month, which was brutal on her budget. After 8 months, she had about $6,400 in her emergency fund. She told me the exact moment it clicked for her. She was at work and her check engine light came on. Normally, that would have triggered immediate panic. How much is this going to cost? Can I afford it? Do I need to put it on a credit card? But this time, her first thought was different. It was just, annoying, but I can handle it. The repair ended up being $900. She paid cash. Her emergency fund dropped to $5,500, and she told me she felt wealthy. Not because she had a ton of money, but because she had enough money that a $900 hit didn't destroy her financially or emotionally. That's the feeling you're saving for. That's when it starts to feel worth it. This is what most people don't realize. The value of savings isn't primarily about what you can buy with it. It's about the psychological freedom it gives you. It's about not having to stress about the small stuff. It's about being able to make decisions based on what's best for you, not just what you can afford right this second. But there's a third tipping point, and this is where saving goes from feeling worth it to feeling powerful. This happens somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 depending on your income and expenses. And at this point, you're not just covering emergencies. You're buying time and options. With $25,000 saved, you could quit a job you hate and take a few months to find something better. You could invest in education or training to change careers. You could move to a new city if an opportunity came up. You could take a risk on starting a business. You're not rich, but you're no longer trapped by the need for your next paycheck. Here's where it gets really interesting. This is the level where compound interest starts to feel real. If you've got $25,000 invested in index funds averaging 10% annually, that's $2,500 in returns per year. That's not life-changing money, but it's meaningful. That's several months of groceries that you didn't have to work for. Your money is starting to work for you. And psychologically, that changes how you think about everything. You start thinking less about, how do I afford this? And more about, is this how I want to allocate my resources? You're making choices, not just reacting to circumstances. Now you might be thinking, Drew, this all sounds great, but I'm at $3,000 right now. How do I get to these tipping points faster? And here's what I want you to understand. You can't really speed up the timeline by much if you're saving a fixed amount per month. Math is math, but you can make the journey feel faster by gamifying the milestones. Here's what actually works. First, stop thinking about your big goal and start thinking about the next tipping point. If you're at $3,000, your goal isn't $50,000. Your goal is $5,000. That's achievable. That's close enough to feel real. Get to $5,000 and experience that psychological shift, then set your sights on the next milestone. Second, track your net worth instead of just your savings. Your net worth is everything you own minus everything you owe. So if you've got $3,000 saved, but you also paid off $2,000 in credit card debt over the past year, your net worth increased by $5,000. That's substantial progress even if your savings account doesn't show it. Third, calculate what I call your freedom number. This is how many months of expenses you could cover with your current savings. If your monthly expenses are $2,500 and you've got $5,000 saved, your freedom number is 2 months. Focus on increasing that number. Going from 1 month to 2 months of runway is a massive psychological win. Fourth, celebrate the non-financial wins that come from having savings. The first time you handle an unexpected expense without stress. The first time you say no to something you don't want to do because you're not desperate for money. The first time you make a decision based on what you want instead of what you can afford. These moments are the real reward. Fifth, understand that the curve accelerates. Getting from zero to $5,000 might take you 18 months, but getting from $5,000 to $10,000 might take only 10 months. And getting from $10,000 to $20,000 might take only 14 months. Because as your balance grows, the compound interest kicks in. You're not just saving your contributions anymore. Your money is earning money. Here's what most people don't realize. The point where saving feels worth it isn't when you hit some arbitrary dollar amount. It's when you experience your first moment of financial freedom. When you handle something that would have been a crisis 6 months ago and it's just, fine, you've got it covered. For some people, that moment comes at $2,000. For others, it's $8,000. But everyone has that moment where something clicks and you realize the sacrifice was worth it. The meal prepping, the skipping expensive outings, the driving the old car, all of it was in service of this feeling of security. And here's the beautiful part. Once you experience that feeling, saving stops being a sacrifice. It becomes something you want to do because you're not saving for some abstract future goal anymore. You're saving to increase this very real, very tangible feeling of freedom and security that you've already tasted. Now, let me tell you what happens after you hit these tipping points. You start making different decisions automatically. You stop financing things you could save up for because you'd rather pay cash and avoid interest. You stop settling for jobs or situations that make you miserable because you've got the runway to be selective. You start thinking in terms of years and decades instead of weeks and months. This is what most people don't realize. Building wealth isn't about deprivation. It's about getting to the point where you have enough saved that money stops being a constant source of stress and starts being a tool that gives you options. And that transition happens at these specific psychological tipping points. So if you're at $1,000 right now, push for $2,000, then $5,000. Each milestone will feel different. Each one will give you a new level of freedom, and each one will make the next milestone feel more achievable. And if you're already past $5,000, heading toward $10,000 or $20,000 or more, you already know what I'm talking about. You've felt the shift. You know that the grind was worth it. Keep going. The curve accelerates from here. If this video helped you understand what you're actually working toward when you save money, hit that like button and subscribe because I'm making videos like this every week about the psychological realities of building wealth. Drop a comment letting me know. Have you hit any of these tipping points? What did it feel like when you got there? Now go check your balance and figure out your next milestone. You're closer than you think. You've got this.